Right, so let us discuss whether women should work or not. Now, I know a lot of women are already annoyed by men trying to discuss whether women should work or not because, they're saying, what's it to you anyway, you know? Stop trying to control women, stop trying to tell women what to do, etc. Women should be able to work if they want, and if they don't want, well, then they shouldn't have to. And the fallacy comes in when we say the latter part, meaning that women should be able to work if they want, and if they don't want, they shouldn't have to. Well, we know that that's not true, okay? A lot of women have to work. They don't work because they want to work, they work because they absolutely must. They have financial obligations and responsibilities. And it's not usually them, those women, that are having this discussion. It's usually women who don't have to work and whose husbands or parents or someone is telling them that it's not a good idea to work now, and they basically kicking against the car and saying, well, I want to work, and usually it's those women who are having the debate. Women who are working because they're obligated to do so would have liked to have the option not to work, of course. Women who don't have to work feel that they are being oppressed by not having the option to work. And so here is where we need to dive in, right? Because it's not as simple as what you want or what you don't want. Work and jobs is a function of the economy. So in order to understand whether or not women should or shouldn't work, we need to understand how the economy works, because the economy is what provides the jobs to begin with. So let's go in, okay? So, where do we start? Okay, let's go first with the topic of demand and supply. How does it work? How does the economy work? So, in any free market economy, goods are sold where demand meets supply. Okay, goods and or services. So, what does it mean? It means that if you have 10 loaves of bread and you have 10 people, okay, needing these 10 loaves of bread, the demand equals the supply. The bread will be sold to these 10 people if each one buys one loaf of bread. The price of the bread will also be reasonable. It will be more or less what these 10 people can afford. If you have 5 loaves of bread, but 10 people need to buy bread, each one of them need to buy a loaf of bread, but there's only 5, well, now the demand is more than the supply. So the price of bread will skyrocket because these 10 people will try to outbid each other for the bread. Because the market has to regulate the price. So if I know, as a seller, that I have 5 loaves of bread, but there's all these people who need bread, I can ask whatever I want for the price of bread, okay? Because where demand is going to meet supply, it's going to be high up there. The price is going to be quite high. The opposite is true. There are 10 people and they need bread, but I have 20 loaves of bread, right? The price of bread is going to be very low because I want to sell my 20 loaves of bread. The bread will go off, okay? So what I do is I have the price pitched at a very low price so that potentially people can buy 2 loaves of bread. So where I would, for example, maybe sell 1 loaf of bread for $1 ordinarily, Now I will sell one loaf of bread for 75 cents and say buy two loaves of bread for $1.50. So people will be like, look, what the heck, instead of buying one loaf of bread for $1 like the normal price, why don't I buy two loaves of bread for $1.50? That way I get rid of all the bread, plus I get that extra income of the 50 cent, which I wouldn't have gotten if I only sold the one loaf of bread. Okay, so this is kind of general economics. Okay, there's demand and supply, where the demand is greater than the supply, the price of goods go up. Where the supply is more than the demand, the price of goods go down. Okay, so what happened? So how does this relate to the females working scenario? Okay, put that one side, keep it in your head, okay? Next chapter, next concept. Now, in traditional societies, in traditional families, traditional homes, it is largely expected that men are to be the breadwinners. What does it mean? It means that a man needs to go out every day, work for his family, bring his resources, his money home, which will be used to look after the family. Okay, in turn, his wife will stay home to look after the children. Somebody's got to do it, okay? And that is the traditional family structure. Okay? In the world where this was normal, say 100 years ago, the jobs were exclusively for men, or for the most part for men, okay? So the labor pool, let's say you have 10 people in the economy, 5 of them men, 5 of them women. There's only 10 people, okay? The 5 men who need to look after the woman, so let's say each one of these women is married to each one of these men. So the 5 women are wives and the 5 men are husbands. Okay. When each one of these 5 men have to go work, okay, for these 5 women, they are each more likely to be guaranteed a job because there's only 5 people in the labor force. 5. Okay. So let's say there are about 6 jobs or 7 jobs, but there's 5 people in the labor force. These men can name the price of their labor. They have negotiating power because there's a scarcity of labor. Only the men work. Okay? So these 7 companies, because 2 companies are going to be without workers, they say, hey, you know what, we got to solve this problem. Like, we have greater labor needs than what can be met by these men. So we're going to tell the woman that they are being oppressed by the patriarchy, by the tyranny of these men who want their wives to be at home. Oh my God, it's so terrible, so tyrannical, so oppressive. How dare they work for these women? They should not do that, right? And they start marketing that they are now employing women. So what happens is 3 of the women start applying for the jobs, right? There are 7 jobs, right? So now we have 8 people in the labor market with 7 jobs. So there's surplus of labor. So now, when one of the guys gets stroppy and say, listen, but you paying us way too little. You can't afford me. The employer says, you know what? I don't have to take this drama from you. There's a woman there waiting for this job. So you're fired. Okay, so this sets a precedent. And now the price of labor starts to plummet. The women who are employed, the 3 now who are employed, they come home and say, it's so nice to have your own money, not to have to ask your husband before you want to buy something, not to have to ask him for permission. You know, we can just do our own thing nowadays. We can buy whatever we want, go wherever we want. We don't have to depend on our husbands. We are independent women, right? The other women, the two that are still dependent on their husband, they're like, you know what? You're right. We should also get jobs. So they present themselves to the labor market. This increases the size of the labor market. There are now 7 jobs and 10 laborers. 7 jobs and 10 laborers. So the women say that, you know what, we prepare to work for much less because our husbands are obligated to maintain us anyway. So the money we're going to get is just for us. It's auxiliary. It's not the main income. So they start applying for the jobs, and guess what? Because they're offering their services for much less, which they need to do to break into the market, the men are told, look, there are all these people looking for these jobs. If you don't accept the lower wages, then we will fire you. The men say, but I have a family to look after. So the employer says, you know what? Then you're fired. Unfortunately, this is business. We want to make the maximum profit we can and have the reduced expense. So what happens? The women start working, and most of the men lose their jobs. Okay, so again, how many jobs are there? 7 jobs. Now, there are 5 women working and 2 men working. Okay? 3 men are at home. So the 3 men who are at home are told by their wives who are now working, you're not a real man. Okay, you're not maintaining me, you're not looking after me, look how he's struggling now, wah, 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 wah. And then what happens? Divorce. Okay, the 3 ladies that are now working are terribly unhappy because the husband isn't doing his manly duties. So she goes to the imam and says, oh, you know, this guy, he doesn't maintain me. The imam says, divorce, right? So these 3 women are now single, okay? And they have their jobs. But now the 3 women that are single and have their jobs, they see the 2 men who are employed. Remember, 2 men are employed, okay? 5 women are in the jobs. The 2 men are still married. Okay, the 3 wives of the unemployed men are now single. So they lonely because now they don't have a man, and they are at work where they see the 2 men of the 2 women who are still at home housewives. And they become the mistresses of the 2 men at work, right? And they just get on with their lives in that way because, well, they're not prepared to put up with a man that they have to financially support. They don't want a man who is on a lower level than them, hypergamy. So they'll have to content themselves with these 2 married men who by now have climbed the corporate ladder. So what happens is the 2 men have all the women. Remember, there's 5 women. Okay? The 2 men have all the women. They have their wives at home. Each one of them get to have mistresses. One of them has 2 mistresses. One of them has 1 mistress. So one man has 3 women. The other man has 2 women. Okay? And the 3 men get left behind and finally commit suicide. And that is the picture of the society in which we live today. And so I'm going to ask you the question, should women work? What do you think? Thank you very much.